Why are you going to Evil Spirit Valley? The two of them could not figure out Li Yuanqing's background at all, so they did not dare to provoke him. They did not know where he came from either. He looked quite scary, but if he really had news of their big brother and fourth brother, it was not impossible to make this deal with him. I have my own matters. I don't need you to ask. The two of them looked at each other, and then at Li Yuanqing. They felt that this guy did not look like someone who lived nearby. Those who had lived here for a long time usually knew the reputation of the Evil Spirit Valley. Anyone who entered the valley would find it difficult to come out alive. That place was a top-notch dangerous place. Who would want to go in there unless they were crazy? Do you know what kind of place this Evil Spirit Valley is? The second brother asked Li Yuanqing tentatively. I just heard some news that it's a very dangerous place to go. However, I've always liked to go to dangerous places. It's an old habit. What Li Yuanqing said was even stranger. It was really not easy for him to live to this age when he's this arrogant. Second brother, don't say so much. It's unknown if big brother and fourth brother are dead or alive now. I'll bring them there. You go and save big brother first. How can I do that? The man refused righteously. The Evil Spirit Valley is extremely dangerous. How can I let you take the risk alone? Moreover, the underground is very fierce now. If you go, it's unknown if you can come back. After he finished speaking, Li Yuanqing suddenly smiled and said, I think this suggestion is very good. Your two brothers are indeed not in a good state. If this continues, it's hard to say if anything will happen. The man frowned and looked at Li Yuanqing. The two of them still did not understand how Li Yuanqing did it. Their big brother was clearly trapped in the beast tide, and it shouldn't have been difficult to escape. But why was he in this kid's hands? However, the images that this kid took out were so realistic and did not look fake. Could it be that what he said was true? However, this kind of thing was really unbelievable. Li Yuanqing took out a jade token and placed it in his hand. He said to the two of them, this jade stone has their exact location. As long as one of you is willing to bring me there, I'll give you this stone. While second brother was still hesitating, third sister went up and grabbed the jade pendant. She stuffed it into her second brother's hand. Second brother, hurry up and save big brother. The two of them are in a critical situation. If we don't rush over now, I'm afraid it'll be dangerous. But you, don't worry about me. The beast tide has just passed. I'm sure there won't be much danger on this path for the time being. Moreover, we've been walking in this wilderness for many years and are very familiar with the territory here. Nothing will happen. The second brother was still reluctant to leave his third sister here alone. No one knew what would happen if she brought such an unknown kid to the Evil Spirit Valley. More importantly, it was hard to say if the information in this kid's hands was true. They had seen with their own eyes that their big brother and fourth brother were trapped in the beast pack by the bulls. It should be impossible for them to escape. However, this guy said it so confidently that it actually sounds true. He looked down at the jade in his hand and was silent for a long time before finally agreeing. Then you must be careful. If anything happens, you must inform me immediately. Second brother, don't worry. I'll definitely take good care of myself. The two of them bade farewell reluctantly on the mountain. The tens of thousands of bull herds had already left into the distance under the mighty momentum. After Li Yuanqing and his third sister left, the second brother specially went to the place where the beast tide passed by. He checked carefully again and indeed did not find the corpses of his big brother and fourth brother. There was not even a speck of dust left on the ground. His big brother was powerful. If he was killed by those bulls, at least some residue would be left behind. Although those bulls had some intelligence, it was very limited. In their struggle, they would definitely leave something behind. However, he had searched everything within a few miles. He could not find anything. He still couldn't find anything after one last round of searching. He could only give up helplessly and take out the jade stone that Li Yuanqing had given him. After spiritual energy rushed into the jade, a red dot appeared. The red dot kept flashing. It should be where his brothers were. When he looked back at the two people who had gradually disappeared, he sped up and rushed towards the red dot. On the other hand, after Li Yuanqing arrived, he realized that the location of the Evil Spirit Valley was even harder to find than he had imagined. There was no exact location map, and this place was filled with mountains. The valley was a very inconspicuous place among the many mountains. More importantly, there were vicious beasts appearing in this place all year round. Those vicious beasts were in groups and were very powerful. Wherever they passed, there was no grass. Humans generally did not choose to survive in this hell, so they could only see one person after a long time. Li Yuanqing was thinking about where to find people when he happened to encounter such a group of bulls. Moreover, a four-man team was trapped. He took the opportunity to interfere and get the four of them out. Of course, the two brothers had yet to figure out the current situation. In fact, they had already fallen into Li Yuanqing's illusion when they were in the bull herd. Li Yuanqing let them into his domain and carefully set them up. They thought that it was just a short period of separation, but they had already been separated. Moreover, he had sent the two people who had decided to stay to an inconspicuous valley thousands of miles away. This was not difficult for him, but it left a very deep impression on the two of them. Neither of them could figure out how Li Yuanqing had done all of this. However, Li Yuanqing had already achieved his goal. If there were four of them, they would more or less have some crooked thoughts, causing his efficiency to decrease greatly. If he only left one person behind, that person would not have any crooked thoughts. He would be able to reach the evil spirit valley in the shortest time. This matter was exactly as Li Yuanqing had thought. This third sister's name was Feng Tzuelian. After landing in Li Yuanqing's hands, Feng Tzuelian was appointed to help Li Yuanqing find the way to the evil spirit valley. After walking for half a day, the two of them appeared at the periphery of a continuous mountain range. The mountain range was very dark. From the outside, it looked like a dormant giant beast. It was sleepy and could wake up at any time. After coming here, Feng Tzuelian spoke much less. Of course, she had nothing to say just now. However, she was even quieter now. Even her breathing had become suppressed. She stared warily at the mountain range in front of her and mobilized all her strength to be careful. This mountain range is where the evil spirit valley is. It's not easy to find the evil spirit valley, Feng Tzuelian said to Li Yuanqing in a low voice. What do you mean? Feng Tzuelian felt a little worried and carefully shifted her position. She told Li Yuanqing, actually, before the evil spirit valley was discovered, this mountain range was still a very quiet and peaceful place. There are many demon beasts growing here, so we can find a lot of materials here. Then what happened next? There are various opinions about what exactly happened. There's not a single accurate statement, but it all started when a person discovered Evil Spirit Valley. Perhaps he wasn't the first to discover it. He was just the first person to walk out of it. Feng Tzuelian brought Li Yuanqing to hide behind a towering tree. As she looked carefully at the continuous mountain range in front of her, she said, "In the beginning, everyone thought that he had discovered a treasure. There must be treasure left behind by someone else. Therefore, many people did not listen to advice and rushed to the Evil Spirit Valley like a swarm of bees. It's just that not many of these people who entered can survive. More importantly, everyone realized that this valley seems to be expanding." Although Li Yuanqing did not know why she was so careful, he still sat with her. The two of them looked at the dark mountain range and chatted about these past events that were difficult to distinguish. Why do you say that it's constantly expanding? Could it be that this valley can still increase its size? Feng Tzuelian looked at Li Yuanqing's nonchalant expression and warned very solemnly, "Young master, this is not an ordinary place. This evil spirit valley is alive. Those people who entered woke up the evil spirit valley, causing the massacre later on." Li Yuanqing had heard of this matter before. As long as it was about the evil spirit valley, there would definitely be such a scene. It was said that there was an immortal who had been banished to the mortal world in that valley. He was punished to kill all the hunters in the mountain range. No one who entered that day came out. From then on, this mountain range seemed to have been sealed. Li Yuanqing did not hear anything useful after listening to her for so long. He stood up and asked her, "Are you confident in bringing me to the valley?" "Young master, this valley is in this mountain range. Unless there's an opportunity, it's very difficult to encounter it. It's not very useful for the two of us to enter. Why don't we?" Feng Tzuelian was not stupid at all. There was a bottomless abyss in front of her. This mountain range was a place that her big brother had warned her repeatedly not to enter. If she entered, she would most likely die. No one wanted to risk their lives to test the waters. Although the appearance of the evil spirit valley was very unstable, and they might not be able to bump into it, there was still a very high risk of entering it. The chances of survival were not that high. It was said that only the lucky ones could walk around inside and come out unscathed. However, she felt that she was neither a powerful person nor a lucky person. In any case, no one was willing to enter this place. But we agreed before that you would bring me to the evil spirit valley. I've already fulfilled my promise. Are you going back on your word? Young master, how can this be considered going back on your word? I've already brought you here. The valley is in this mountain range. You just need to go in and find it, right? Li Yuanqing looked at her coldly and said, I've never heard of the legends you mentioned, but I've heard of one. I wonder if you're willing to hear it? Young master, what are you referring to? I heard that in this catacombs world, those who don't keep their promises will be treated very cruelly and have an extremely miserable outcome. As for how miserable it is, I can't say for sure. I've only heard about it. Feng Tzuelian hesitated before taking 2 steps back. Young master, if you really want to find the evil spirit valley, you can go in alone. It's useless even if there are many people. I think I should. Before Feng Tzuelian could finish speaking, she looked up again. Her vision had already turned empty. She did not know where Li Yuanqing had gone. She hurriedly searched around, but Li Yuanqing seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was not even any movement just now. This person was gone just like that. This was too strange. Young master, you chose this yourself. Don't regret it. Feng Tzuelian only heard this ethereal voice. She did not know where it came from. The voice sounded very ethereal and almost could not be heard clearly, but it was imprinted in her heart so clearly. Cold sweat broke out on her body and she could not stop panting. She looked up at the sky above her in horror. She felt as if there was a god in the sky, glaring at her with Li Yuanqing's eyes. Feng Tzuelian was badly frightened, but the mountain range in front of her was regarded as a forbidden area. Li Yuanqing was just a young man. Although he had said such terrifying words, there should not be any punishment. He was just saying. Since she had regained her freedom, there was even less reason for her to stay here. Feng Tzuelian turned around and ran, as if her feet were smeared with oil. She flew back the way she came and ran without looking back. In the mountain range several miles behind her, a graceful young master stepped into this deep mountain range. A very desolate aura greeted him. Ever since that incident, there weren't that many people coming to the valley. It wasn't as lively, and of course, it was even quieter. There were many basic materials growing inside. However, there were still occasionally bold people who sneaked in to pick some materials to fill their homes. Some of them were unlucky and happened to bump into it. There was no doubt that they would die. However, most of the people who came in were still a little lucky and would not die immediately. The mountain range where the evil spirit valley was located was very wide. This was because it was on the east side of the catacombs world. This mountain range went north and south. It was basically the end of the east, isolating this catacombs world. Very few people could pass through this mountain range to the back. According to their estimation, this mountain range stretches for tens of thousands of miles from north to south. The most dangerous area was the circular area that was thousands of miles long in front of him. This was the especially dangerous place they had summarized. It was easiest to see the evil spirit valley. The reason why the evil spirit valley was so famous was because the person who escaped said that there were dead undead everywhere in the valley. These undead kept wailing and hissing, tearing off every inch of flesh and blood of those who entered. Their special descriptions spread throughout this valley. But because of this terrifying name, it stopped many people from coming here. This area with a radius of 1,000 kilometers was even more lush than the plants beside it. After all, without any external disturbances, the things here grew freely. The environment was much better than the outside. More importantly, it was said that wherever the valley passed, there would be abundant soil left behind. It seemed that as long as one touched the soil of the valley, they would become more fertile than other places. It was unknown if this saying was true or false, but it had been circulating for a very long time. However, from Li Yuanqing's observation, the soil here was indeed much more fertile than outside. Moreover, It was impossible for such fertile soil to be born in a normal environment. It must be related to the legend. Just as he was walking forward, a black lightning suddenly whizzed past him. Li Yuanqing chased after it without thinking and followed the black lightning through the forest. Unknowingly, he had already chased for more than 100 miles and had vaguely reached the depths of the mountain range. At this moment, the little fellow in front suddenly stood still. Only then could he see that it was a little rabbit. This rabbit was covered in black fur. Under the faint light, the black fur emitted a bright light. It looked very lovable. He nestled on the pile of dead wood and did not move. He looked back at Li Yuanqing as if he was curious why this human had chased him so far. Li Yuanqing did not seem to move, but his feet were already moving gently. He slowly approached the little rabbit without disturbing it at all. The little rabbit did not even notice. It kept lowering its head and licking its little claws, not realizing that danger was gradually descending. There was a very unique energy on the little rabbit. Li Yuanqing felt that this unique energy should be what he was looking for, and it should be related to that mysterious valley. Soon, he approached the little rabbit. The little rabbit had just discovered him, but it was too late to escape. Li Yuanqing grabbed the little rabbit. The little rabbit struggled crazily in Li Yuanqing's hand, wanting to escape. However, Li Yuanqing's big hand was like a pincer, forcefully pulling it back, making it impossible for it to escape. At this moment, an extremely dangerous force approached very quickly. Li Yuanqing threw a short knife behind him without looking back. The short knife seemed to have pierced through something, but it was slashed through again. In the end, nothing was left. After a weak breath, it fell into the thick black fog. This strange black fog was very bizarre. It was originally spreading slowly behind, but after sucking the small knife in, it suddenly sped up and jumped in front of Li Yuanqing, enveloping his entire body. Li Yuanqing still wanted to resist, but the black fog quickly sucked him in, not giving him any chance to resist. He had just summoned his shield beside him when his vision darkened in the next second. He could not see anything except for this dark fog. Black fog, endless black fog. The power that Li Yuanqing had released seemed to have been absorbed by the black fog. There was no echo at all. After a long time, there seemed to be a little light in front of him. Could it be a passageway ahead? Li Yuanqing did not know where that place was, but in the endless black fog, he subconsciously followed the light towards the place that looked like an exit. In the beginning, this passageway was very narrow. He could almost only see a faint light in front of him. However, the further he went, the clearer the passageway became. The light gradually became dazzling. After a few miles, everything became bright. He passed through a door and arrived at a brand new world. The world was very bright, as if countless lights were shining in every corner, dazzling everyone. Moreover, there were birds and flowers here. The birds were chirping and dancing. The animals were jumping around happily. It was like the world he had lived in before. It was so harmonious and quiet. There, these animals did not have so many tricks to frame humans. There, these flowers and plants followed the natural rules of the world and grew slowly and persistently. They would not set traps one by one to lure people in and finally paralyze them and kill them. Li Yuanqing felt like he had returned to the past, to the harmonious world he used to live in. Why did he appear here? Everything here was too beautiful. It was so beautiful that it seemed unreal. At this moment, Li Yuanqing looked down at his hands. He was still holding the rabbit in his hands, but the rabbit had already turned pure white. This pure white color made the little rabbit look much cuter. The little rabbit lay on his hand and did not speak. Of course, he could not speak. He just stared at him with those red eyes. Such a scene was so easy to fall in. Li Yuanqing gradually seemed to have forgotten that he had such a little rabbit in his hands. He turned to look at his feet. There were many little fellows beside his feet. There were many identical little white rabbits, some little squirrels, and even those flowers that had their heads tilted and bloomed with beautiful petals, falling for Li Yuanqing. However, there was a killing intent hidden behind all this beauty. However, when Li Yuanqing was at his most relaxed, the originally very cute little rabbit suddenly opened its mouth, revealing its scarlet fangs. The two front teeth were not flat. Instead, they had turned into two very sharp snake-like fangs. He opened his mouth and was about to bite Li Yuanqing's arm. Just as Li Yuanqing was about to throw it away, he realized that the little rabbit's two short and strong arms were hugging his hand very forcefully. The rabbits, squirrels, and butterflies under his feet all revealed their original faces. They opened their bloody mouths and pounced on Li Yuanqing. Even these flowers and plants had 2 rows of sharp teeth. These teeth were terrifying. From the outside, Li Yuanqing's body was immediately surrounded by countless things. Countless insects jumped over from all directions, wanting to eat his flesh. It had been a long time since they had received such nourishment. Those people were all afraid after the massacre and did not dare to come over, causing their valley to no longer be nourished by external spiritual energy. Now, a big guy had come. This person had so much spiritual energy on him. As long as they killed him, they would be able to obtain endless power. This power was so powerful. At this moment, Li Yuanqing, who was already tightly surrounded, suddenly erupted with golden light that filled the sky, sending all the messy things on his body flying. These rabbits fell to the ground without a sound, black blood flowing out of their mouths. When all these small animals died, the light in the entire canyon dissipated and slowly fell into darkness. The color was gradually drowned by the black fog. All the good things came to an end after this first wave of counterattack. This was the place he was looking for. Li Yuanqing casually threw the rabbit whose neck had been broken onto the ground. The moment the rabbit landed on the ground, the grass that was not completely dead immediately swarmed up and wrapped around the rabbit's corpse. Just like that, they split the rabbit's corpse and ate it. Li Yuanqing was not in the mood to care about the battle between these little fellows. He walked forward step by step and observed the situation beside him. There were many plants growing around him, but many of these were carnivorous plants. These plants could obtain spiritual energy from the outside world, and they could not completely digest this spiritual energy, so they scattered from their roots. And they could often nurture some very valuable rare materials. Ordinary people would definitely be very afraid when they saw these things and only want to escape quickly. However, they had never observed that some extremely precious materials would often appear beside these very ferocious little fellows. Not only was Li Yuanqing not frightened by these demons, but he also walked in very firmly. As he walked, he even collected the precious materials along the way. The layout of the valley was very complicated. There were several separated forests. These forests had different trees, like different factions of tree demons gathered together. On the other side, the area he was in was a grassland. The small land of grass growing on this grassland was very offensive. However, their teeth could not break Li Yuanqing's defense. There was also a very dark pond. The pond was like a pool of stagnant water. The dark pond was actually emitting a long black light. This black energy kept spreading out and nourishing the plants growing at the edge of the pond. This was the place he was looking for. Usually, the netherworld flower was born with the netherworld water. Only the pure devilish aura emitted by this water could nourish a pure devil flower like the netherworld flower. It was very difficult to find such a pure devil artifact in the demon realm. But there was actually such a pool of pure devilish energy here, and there was actually a netherworld flower beside it. Li Yuanqing was overjoyed. He did not expect this place to be true. This trip was not in vain since there was something he was looking for. It had taken him a long time to come here. It would be a huge loss if he could not find it. Fortunately, he had finally gained something. At the very least, if he could collect some of the netherworld water, it would be quite beneficial. Li Yuanqing rushed towards the netherworld pond without any hesitation. He could vaguely see a few very unique existences among the dense flowers and plants. Soon, Li Yuanqing arrived at the side of the pond. However, when he was a few meters away from the pond, the grass beside him suddenly stirred. An armored guard stood up from the grass. When the guard raised his head again, Li Yuanqing finally saw the evil spirit in the valley for the first time. Under the helmet was a complete skull. Moreover, one could see that an entire skeleton was wrapped in the tattered armor. These were the evil spirits they were talking about. The evil spirits they saw when they came in were these guys. This person held a rusty black saber in his hand. The black saber had several holes, but it emitted a very pure devilish aura. As long as this vicious power landed on a person, It would corrode the spiritual energy in their body. It was no wonder that very few people could escape alive. The moment the evil spirit woke up, he locked onto his target. His red eyes stared fixedly at Li Yuanqing. Then, without hesitation, he raised his saber and charged at Li Yuanqing. He was very fast. Although he looked like a rotten skeleton on the surface, unexpectedly, his speed was 10 times faster than the little rabbit just now. In the blink of an eye, the skeleton had already arrived in front of Li Yuanqing. Moreover, when the skeleton had already begun to attack, the grass in the other places slowly began to stir. Several small bags emerged and slowly transformed into armor. Red enchanting light gradually flickered in these armors. Although this evil spirit was completely inconspicuous just now and could not even be felt when it was lying on the ground, when this fellow revived, he gained powerful combat strength out of thin air. Just this one alone had the strength of a second-grade formation arrangement realm expert. No wonder those humans outside did not dare to enter. However, Li Yuanqing could not understand why these powerful fellows would appear here. He held the black sword in his hand. After sensing those evil spirits, the demon slayer's sword seemed to be a little excited. Its entire body slowly trembled. This excitement was vaguely transmitted to Li Yuanqing. The skeleton did not know this. Ever since he was revived, his eyes had never left Li Yuanqing's body. At this moment, he was holding the equally dilapidated long saber in his hand high and had already arrived in front of Li Yuanqing. His saber was about to land on Li Yuanqing's head, but Li Yuanqing still did not dodge. It was as if he was not afraid of his powerful attack at all and planned to take it head-on. The red light in the skeleton's eyes intensified. Without hesitation, he slashed down, determined to kill this outsider. Li Yuanqing, who had been motionless, suddenly pulled the sword in his hand in front of him. He only slashed it gently before putting it away. However, the aggressive skeleton just now was suddenly silent. The skeleton seemed to have lost his ability to move and suddenly stood rooted to the ground. Li Yuanqing ignored it and looked to the side. There were many other skeletons who had already woken up. After these skeletons woke up, they stared at Li Yuanqing with their scarlet eyes. They had locked onto their target and approached step by step. They held swords, spears, axes, and all kinds of weapons. These weapons were very old-fashioned and looked like weapons used by warriors a long time ago. Moreover, most of these skeletons were covered in heavy armor. After so many years, the armor was already tattered and could not be seen clearly. However, one could still vaguely feel the heroic spirit of the past. These dead people must have been prominent figures in the past. Li Yuanqing thought to himself, but he did not let down his guard at all. These skeletons did not have any feelings and would not say so much to him. They only wanted to expel this foreign thing, or kill it, and absorb all the spiritual energy on its body. This was such a good nourishment. The flowers and plants under Li Yuanqing's feet were already cheering excitedly. They were cheering and swaying their bodies. Even when the old skeleton died, the flowers and plants below were very active and absorbed the little nutrients left in the skeleton. As for the powerful strength that this skeleton originally possessed, it seemed to have completely returned to this valley and disappeared. Li Yuanqing was surprised by the changes here. However, he did not know how this valley was formed. It was so unfathomable and untraceable. More importantly, every aura that seeped out of it had the same feeling. It was as if everything in the valley was one. When Li Yuanqing was observing the situation beside him, the few resurrected skeletons also entangled him like ghosts. Their bodies kept colliding as they moved, emitting creaking sounds that made one's ears tingle. They were like seriously ill patients who had to endure immense pain to take a step, but they had already completely lost their sense of pain. That pain was completely rooted in one's heart. It was as if they would be suppressed by this intense pain before they could come into contact with knowledge. Ah! A very strange sound came from the bodies of these skeletons. One of the strongest skeletons relied on his strength and took a step forward to stand in front of Li Yuanqing. This fellow's speed was also outstanding among the skeletons. He could even pose as if he was measuring his body and silently sized up Li Yuanqing. Just as Li Yuanqing was guessing what it was going to do next, this fellow suddenly disappeared. More importantly, a thick fog filled the entire valley a second before it was about to attack. This thick fog completely covered its entire figure and isolated Li Yuanqing's divine sense. Originally, Li Yuanqing could still guard this fellow tightly. However, after it disappeared, it was actually very difficult for him to find its body in the fog. It did not disappear for no reason. Instead, it was preparing for the next very violent attack. At this moment, a huge black skeleton hand silently stretched out from Li Yuanqing's side and grabbed his head. With Li Yuanqing's strength, such a concealment method could not completely deceive him. Just as the black hand thought that it was going to succeed, a sharp blade suddenly appeared out of nowhere and cut through its wrist, cutting off its entire hand. Li Yuanqing grabbed the huge black hand that was falling from the sky. This hand had been cut off from its body too suddenly. Before it could escape, it was caught by Li Yuanqing. Even after it reached Li Yuanqing's hand, it was still struggling. After the skeleton's first attack failed, not only did it not retreat, but it also launched a surprise attack from behind Li Yuanqing. This time, a rusty long saber emerged from the black fog. The saber was extremely fast. It cut through the black fog almost instantly and arrived at Li Yuanqing's back. Originally, there was a solid spiritual energy barrier around Li Yuanqing's body, but the black saber completely ignored this spiritual energy barrier. It cut through the spiritual energy barrier like cutting tofu and reached only a centimeter behind Li Yuanqing. New novels chapters are published in. As expected, the long saber struck Li Yuanqing. However, there was a clang as if it had hit an iron plate, immediately suppressing the long saber. At the center of the two of them, a very small semicircular golden disc appeared at some point and turned into a solid shield, protecting Li Yuanqing. The rusty long saber had already reached the end of its lifespan. After being hit like this, it was even more miserable. After a very crisp sound, it broke inch by inch. The armor behind him, which was originally very arrogant, also shattered into pieces with a clang. Li Yuanqing directly blew away the portion of black fog behind him. One could see that the originally very arrogant black heavy-armored soldiers were only left with a set of armor. The skeleton that was very arrogant just now had already died under Li Yuanqing's hands. These skeletons did not stop at all. After their big brother died, the fellows behind them did not seem to be afraid at all. They still broke out of the black fog. A very strange sound came from their bodies and surrounded Li Yuanqing from all directions. Suddenly, countless sharp swords erupted from Li Yuanqing's body. These small swords emitted endless power and pierced through in all directions without any obstruction. Those powerful skeletons were instantly shattered into pieces by Li Yuanqing's sword energy. After Li Yuanqing destroyed all these skeletons, the black fog that filled the surroundings gradually dissipated. Not long after, the dark night sky finally returned to normal. The originally dark valley regained some light. This time, Li Yuanqing arrived at the side of the pond without any obstruction and picked up the few netherworld flowers that were growing well nearby. If someone weaker came to pick the netherworld flower, they would probably not be able to deal with a single skeleton, let alone so many ghost knights. However, Li Yuanqing was not an ordinary person. His strength had improved greatly and was about to reach the 7th grade formation arrangement realm. The speed of his advancement was not something ordinary people could imagine. However, what Li Yuanqing did not notice was that on the cliff of the valley, 2 deep eyes had opened at some point. They were staring at him coldly, as if they had already noticed this unrestrained outsider. After Li Yuanqing picked these netherworld flowers, he picked some other things. He glanced into the depths of the valley. Even though he was already in the middle, he kept feeling that the danger of standing in the deepest part was much higher than here. If it was in an ordinary situation, he would definitely continue to chase after it to see what was inside. Unfortunately, he suddenly felt a very dangerous feeling in his heart today, causing him to stop in his tracks. He had already gained enough recently. The materials he had obtained in the first 2 places were enough to keep him busy for a while. There was no need to stay here for too long. If he really wanted to figure this place out, it would be a good choice to come again in the future. As Li Yuanqing thought about it, he vaguely had the intention to retreat. He had already obtained a lot this time. This valley was not big. Compared to the grassland, it was simply a palm-sized piece of land. The The spiritual energy here was very dense, so these things were very rich. Even though he had only walked such a short distance, he had gained a lot. After bringing the treasures back, he would probably be able to refine many things. It could even improve his refining skills. However, just as he was about to leave, the blood vine, who had been obedient and motionless in the domain, suddenly crawled out. The blood vine extended a vine and slowly extended into the valley. "You want to go inside?" Li Yuanqing looked at the vine and asked. The vine seemed to be able to understand him and wriggled very docilely. Li Yuanqing hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and deciding to continue walking forward. Although he felt that there was not much of a problem if he retreated now, if the blood vine was really so interested in this place, there must be some secret hidden here that could awaken the blood vine. The blood vine was very likely a figure left behind from the ancient battlefield. If he could wake up, it would be very helpful for Li Yuanqing to understand the history of the human race here. This was someone who had personally experienced it. His experience was a priceless treasure. Li Yuanqing hesitated again and again. He thought that he had spent a lot of effort to come here. After all, so many troubles had been resolved. It did not seem to be a big problem to take another step forward. "All right, I promise to bring you there." Li Yuanqing retracted the blood vine and left the pond silently. As soon as he left, a huge eyeball rose from the pond. It stared at Li Yuanqing's back intently, as if sizing him up. This big eye was completely black, and the center was as deep as a spring. Li Yuanqing, who knew nothing, continued to walk slowly into the depths of the valley. In front of the pool was a bamboo forest. Although the bamboo forest was in a proper shape, the color was very strange. The bamboo looked dark, and the leaves were black. There was even a very cold light on the leaves, like black daggers. Li Yuanqing looked up at the black daggers hanging above his head and walked into the bamboo forest. Although the bamboo forest looked strange, it was about the same if he wanted to circle around to other places. There was a patch of bushes at the side. The bushes were as tall as 2 people. There were so many that there was no place for anyone to stand. It was extremely difficult to walk over. Moreover, he had to be on guard against threats that would appear from nowhere. He might as well go through the bamboo forest openly. This bamboo forest was very quiet. It was unknown how many years it had been since someone came here. Now that there was suddenly such a visitor, the bamboo in the bamboo forest seemed to be nervous. When Li Yuanqing stepped in, there seemed to be a gust of wind that swayed the bamboo. The bamboo leaves collided like metal pieces, emitting a very pleasant sound. This sound sounded very strange. It was very clear and pleasant, but there was a sinister feeling in his heart. It was as if it was constantly reminding others that this place was such a deep forest filled with devilish aura. As Li Yuanqing walked in, he listened to the crisp and pleasant music that made him feel very uncomfortable. He felt like his consciousness was a little blurry. He calmed himself down and isolated those very strange sounds. These sounds would affect one's mind and gradually make one irrational and filled with fantasies. Looking at the situation here, this bamboo forest was probably a huge illusion array. It was easy for people who were slightly unstable to fall into this illusion and be trapped here forever by these bamboos. Li Yuanqing did not dare to be negligent. The power here was very unique. According to the legends, this was an ancient battlefield, a place left behind by the humans during the war with the Devil Realm. Therefore, there would be some devilish techniques and a lot of devilish aura entangled with the power of humans. These 3 very complicated forces kept entangling and affecting each other. In the end, they transformed into the treacherous energy given to these evil spirits. Just as Li Yuanqing was walking in, the bamboo on his left suddenly opened up a passageway for some reason. The path extended straight inside, but it was covered by a very thick smoke, making it impossible to see what was inside. This sudden change made Li Yuanqing stop in his tracks. He turned to face the path. It was obvious that they wanted him to go in since such a path had suddenly appeared. However, should he go in? Logically speaking, there was no reason for him to listen to these guys in such a dangerous place. These guys could not wait for him to die. Now that a path had suddenly appeared, they wanted him to go in and die obediently. They couldn't possibly open it to let him pass that easily, right? That was impossible. However, what was the purpose of suddenly opening a path like this? Could it be that it was just splitting open a path here to let Li Yuanqing stay for a moment? Li Yuanqing was about to ignore this path and continue walking when he suddenly heard the sound of a zither. He had just realized that the sound of the zither had already existed. However, the sound was very ethereal and he could not find the direction at all. Now, the sound of the zither gradually became real and kept expanding in his ears, leaving traces in his heart. Li Yuanqing, who was not interested in this at first, inexplicably became interested when he heard this familiar sound. It was clearly an instrument that only humans would use. Only humans would use these things. Demons and demon beasts like them only wanted to live. How could they enjoy these spiritual pleasures? But why was there someone in this place? It shouldn't be. Li Yuanqing walked along the path. At first, the side was still misty, but the further he walked, the brighter it became. As he walked, the bamboo in the bamboo forest beside the mountain had turned emerald green. These green bamboos and this very weak breeze blew on his body. The bamboo leaves swayed with the wind. From time to time, a few pieces would be blown off by the wind and land on his head, emitting a very strong fragrance. This feeling was so warm that it made him feel like he was in a human manner. Li Yuanqing slowly admired the scenery along the bamboo forest. As he walked in, he arrived at a pavilion. This pavilion was very unique and small. It could accommodate a gathering of 3 good friends. There were a few mats hanging in the empty space outside the pavilion, covering the scene inside, making it impossible to see clearly. Li Yuanqing felt that his curiosity was very strong. So he went around to the front and saw a graceful man in a long robe playing the zither in the pavilion. The man closed his eyes slightly and focused all his attention on the zither. His very thin fingers gently patted the strings, carrying a very romantic melody that echoed in the empty bamboo forest. Li Yuanqing only looked at this person quietly and was not in a hurry to speak. After the song ended, this person slowly stopped his hands and slowly placed his 2 fair palms on the strings, gently calming the restless strings. The man slowly opened his eyes, or perhaps he did not open his eyes. Li Yuanqing saw that the man's eyes seemed to have opened, but they were white. He could not see his eyes or any vitality in it. He only saw a confused light blocking the man's eyes. Why did you bring me here? After Li Yuanqing admired the graceful sound of the zither, he asked bluntly. Although he still looked like he was in a very humanized bamboo forest, Li Yuanqing knew that this place was not a bamboo forest, but the Evil Spirit Valley. He was still at the side of the Evil Spirit Valley, and there were still many dangers. How could he really fall into this graceful zither music and be unable to extricate himself? A smile seemed to appear on the man's face. A voice came from somewhere. Why did you want to go in? I don't know either, but there must be some secret hidden here. It might be best never to reveal the secrets here. Isn't it best to leave the secrets in this valley and leave on your own? Li Yuanqing frowned slightly and looked at the man. I see that you're also a human. The Evil Spirit Valley killed countless cultivators. How can we let it continue staying here? Everything in the world has its own laws of operation. When there's life, there's death. It's all predestined karma. How can you brood over life and death? Who are you? Why are you here? No one alive can exist in this place. Who exactly are you? It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that I can save your life. If you insist on going in now, you'll only be left with a dead end. If you're willing to leave now, everyone will be fine and nothing will happen. Isn't that the best? New novels chapters are published in. No, I have to go in. It's not like I have to have a reason to go in. I'll go in no matter what you say. So now can we do it? Li Yuanqing slowly pulled out the sword and held it in his hand. He placed it beside him and assumed a defensive posture. He knew that he would be in great danger if he took a step forward. However, it was hard to say what methods this guy would use. The person in front of him gave him a huge threat. He could not see what his cultivation was. The man sighed slightly and gently put away his zither. The world often comes for benefits. If you insist on entering, I won't stop you. Then go and don't look back. As soon as the man finished speaking, the beautiful bamboo forest beside Li Yuanqing disappeared. He reappeared in the bamboo forest outside. It seemed to be where he had left off just now. It was as if he had never moved since that moment. He had always been in this place. Li Yuanqing did not know when he had fallen into an illusion, but he had always been on guard. However, this environment was so unpredictable that he was still pulled in. Although he did not know who did it, Li Yuanqing still raised his guard. It was not that what that person said just now was true. Perhaps some of the voices that person made were the voices in Li Yuanqing's heart. Li Yuanqing could not even believe that he had really met such a person just now. However, what the person said was still lingering in his ears. Perhaps it was true. However, no matter what, he had to enter this place. This was a very good opportunity. If he could revive the blood vine, he might be able to discover a great treasure. Humans had been operating on this land for so long in the past. No one could say for sure if they could obtain such powerful strength. Moreover, why was this continent so barren? What exactly happened? There must be a reason. Why were there still so many dangerous places in the catacombs world where cultivation was very difficult to climb up? How did these desperate situations come about? There were so many secret treasures here that seemed to be something that the people of this world could not enjoy. Li Yuanqing continued walking in with these doubts. This world looked very strange. He did not know what was strange about it, but it seemed like he had never heard the music in his ears again. Just now, he could still hear some very light music, although the sound was still a little scary. However, ever since that person disappeared, the music seemed to have disappeared too. Li Yuanqing could not help but feel a little lost. Just as he was feeling melancholic, he did not know that the bamboos beside him were no longer swaying in the wind. Instead, they slowly condensed. These black bamboos slowly walked and turned into very tall giants. These giants that were twisted together by the bamboo were like vine-armored soldiers. Their bodies emitted a majestic aura. More importantly, their heavy armor was so powerful. Ordinary swords and swords could not hurt them at all. Li Yuanqing felt this huge power. These giants had already condensed into form. They had basically used up all the bamboo in the entire bamboo forest and finally transformed into 4 huge warriors. After these giant warriors were formed, all the black bamboos disappeared. They surrounded Li Yuanqing in the middle. The 4 giants vaguely occupied 4 directions and blocked Li Yuanqing's path. These guys were even stronger. Every giant had the strength of a 5th-grade formation arrangement realm expert. The combined combat strength of these 4 fellows was too powerful. Their bodies were made of powerful materials to begin with. This bonus was already high enough. If an ordinary 6th or even 7th-grade formation arrangement realm person were to come here, they might not be able to subdue them. Li Yuanqing suddenly swung his hand, and a huge fireball soared into the sky and slowly circled above his head. Ever since he learned this flame technique, he had not used it many times. He had been practicing diligently during this period of time and was already very familiar with it. Although the monsters made of bamboo in front of him looked powerful, if they were corroded by flames that could burn everything, they would still be burned to ashes obediently. The 4 bamboo giants were still unaware of the danger. They were still arrogantly emitting their huge power and constantly squeezing Li Yuanqing's space. Just as they surrounded Li Yuanqing until there was nowhere for him to escape, these fellows suddenly released countless large hands and tied them together, forming a cage that trapped Li Yuanqing. This cage was woven very firmly. Li Yuanqing slashed with his sword and only left a dent in the bamboo. After being enhanced by the power it condensed, the toughness of these bamboos far exceeded his imagination. Black liquid was secreted from these bamboos. After the liquid was secreted, it evaporated upon coming into contact with the air and finally spread throughout the narrow space. Li Yuanqing stretched out a finger and a small flame appeared on it. He threw the small flame towards the place where the black gas was spreading. The moment the black gas touched the flames, it immediately burned up and was instantly burned clean. Flames filled the sky and drowned the entire bamboo forest. When the huge fireball hundreds of feet in diameter erupted from the huge cage woven from bamboo, it ignited all the bamboo. The bamboo waved its body crazily and whipped the ground, constantly twisting. They had long dispersed and become their own factions. However, no matter how hard they tried, the fire was still wrapped around their bodies like maggots. A bright fireball rushed out of the cage and arrived at the periphery. An imposing cultivator walked out. Li Yuanqing stood above the bamboo forest and looked down at the bamboo forest that had been very lush just now. If these bamboos had not provoked him, they would not have caused so much trouble. However, they had already been burned to ashes. The flames even had to burn the last piece of ashes and completely lose any energy before they could stop. Li Yuanqing noticed that when the bamboo forest was burning, a faint light screen seemed to appear outside the nearby forest. This light screen seemed to have some kind of magic that isolated the flames outside. Logically speaking, such flames were specially used to restrain these evil creatures, but he did not expect that these flames could be stopped. If he let the flames spread out, he would definitely burn this valley clean. Sounds good. Li Yuanqing did not look back at the bamboo forest and continued walking in. What happened after that was no longer related to him. However, the desire in his heart was gradually rising, as if some desire was constantly urging him to walk forward step by step. But what would he gain if he continued forward? What would it be? It was still a mystery. In front of Li Yuanqing was a small forest. These trees were not big and looked like ordinary saplings. However, it was these trees that were united in the face of the flames and released that weak light screen. They were very firm in blocking the flames that could kill them. Although he did not know how they achieved this unique defense ability was indeed very different. Li Yuanqing was also very careful before entering. Although these trees did not look big, they gave him a very dangerous feeling. This dangerous feeling made him feel very uncomfortable. When he was in the bamboo forest just now, Li Yuanqing had never felt such a sense of danger when facing the person who appeared in the illusion. He carefully stepped into the bamboo forest. The shield outside seemed to have opened a small door for him. It split open and let him in. "Stop here. Don't go any further." An extremely dignified voice came from above Li Yuanqing's head. Li Yuanqing looked up and saw nothing in the gray sky above. It was still the same as before. He could not see anything and was covered by the fog. Please reading on MYBOX and OVEL.com. Who are you? I'm a person who knows yourself better than you do. Nonsense. Everyone here is clearly a demon. What do you mean you understand me better than I do? That person continued. Humans have always been weak. They have always looked weak. Even if you look much stronger than those ordinary people, it doesn't change anything. I don't need to change anything. I just need to know what's hidden here. Ha ha ha. That person suddenly laughed out loud. His voice was incomparably arrogant. These are all your human ancestors and figures that you need to worship. Why? Do you want to kill them all too? Oh no, they're already dead. They've been buried here for countless years. Now, there's such a filial descendant who came to visit them, right? Li Yuanqing was indeed completely confused when he heard his words. He did not know if he had gone crazy or what, but his words were so strange. Moreover, there did not seem to be any logic in his words. But if one thought about it carefully, they seemed to be able to find some logic. What was the use of this valley? What was its origin? Why did this guy say that this place worshipped the ancestors of the human race? Could it be those dead undead? Just as Li Yuanqing was thinking, he suddenly felt the few small trees beside him move very firmly according to a certain trajectory. Immediately after, the scene in front of Li Yuanqing changed and a battle scene suddenly appeared. In the image, some humans in golden armor waved their weapons and fought against the demons in front of them. Their bodies emitted endless holy light that covered the darkness brought by those demons. In the image, they looked so noble and heroic. Li Yuanqing did not know why that fellow wanted him to see such a scene. Could it be that he was telling him that the human race had such a glorious history in the past? However, at this moment, the scene in front of him suddenly changed to a very dark valley. The valley was not big and was filled with weeds. In the weeds stood skeletons. Their eyes flickered with scarlet light. They surrounded a despairing human cultivator and stretched out their demonic palms. The person in the middle screamed in horror, but Li Yuanqing could not hear anything. He could only see his eyes glaring like balls. He tried his best to get help from outside. He reached out to the sky, but no one could respond. His voice echoed throughout the valley, but no living person in the valley could hear this dying shout to save him. It was all so hopeless, and the image was chilling. Those armored skeletons ate the human in front of them bite by bite. Suddenly, a cold light flashed. The cold light turned back into a long, narrow crack. This scene unfolded from the middle. The skeletons twisted their bodies into black smoke and dissipated into the air. Li Yuanqing stood in the air with his sword in hand and glared at the surrounding space. Don't play these tricks with me. I'm here for no other reason than to find treasures. I know you must be here to protect your treasures, but I'm here today. No matter what, you have to hand over your precious things. Ha ha ha. The voice appeared again. This time, the smile was so arrogant and familiar. Good kid, if you're really so capable, come and take this treasure away. In any case, I don't want to stay here after witnessing so many dirty human souls. If you can kill me and free me forever, I'll remember your contribution. Humph. Li Yuanqing looked coldly in the direction of the voice and said, Don't think that I won't dare to kill you just because you said this. Well said, well said. Come in and kill me. As long as you kill me, everything will be over. There will be nothing left in this valley, and there will be no more of these messy, evil spirits to devour the souls of those people. There will be nothing. Li Yuanqing felt that it was a little strange. He did not know if this guy was crazy or something. Why did he want him to kill him so much? What benefits could he obtain? Could it be that he had really fallen into madness and did not want to continue living in such an environment like he said? This seemed reasonable, but it was not that convincing. I've already been tortured by you humans for more than 1,000 years. If I can be freed from you, a human junior, won't it be considered a good end? A human-shaped black shadow suddenly appeared beside Li Yuanqing. This black shadow appeared very suddenly. It was originally invisible, but it transformed into half a person just like that. Only its upper body was left as it slowly circled Li Yuanqing, as if it was not worried at all that Li Yuanqing would attack him now. As he circled around, he whispered into Li Yuanqing's ear, Kid, but it's not that simple if you want to kill me. You have to kill all the people outside first. These are your human ancestors. If not for them causing trouble here, this evil spirit valley wouldn't have become so notorious. I'm not a bad person. Don't tell me this. Their minds have already been corroded. They're no longer humans. No matter what you say, they're useless to me. Li Yuanqing's words suddenly made the ghost smile even more happily. He jumped up and down excitedly, and his entire body seemed to have become a little unstable. He said to Li Yuanqing happily, That's right, that's right. They were once brave heroes here. They killed so many of my clansmen and sealed us here. But now, they've become like this. Not only do we have to ostracize them, but even your human race doesn't recognize them as your seniors. They're like monsters that can be cut down with a saber. Li Yuanqing did not want to waste his breath on him anymore. This fellow had been saying something completely useless. It did not feel particularly realistic to try to get something out of him. It was better to go all out and kill this person first. Then, the canyon would fall into a situation of losing control. At that time, there would not be these array formations around, and they would not be able to block Li Yuanqing so easily. Just as Li Yuanqing had the thought of attacking, this fellow suddenly laughed out loud. Kid, you must be impatient. You must want to kill me now, right? Although the ghost said that, its body retreated very honestly and disappeared into the smoke. Of course I want to die under your knife and be free forever, but not now. You have to get past them first. As soon as he finished speaking, a pair of skeletons walked out of the thick, black smoke. These skeleton soldiers were similar to the skeletons outside. They were all tattered and their eyes flickered with a strange red light. Of course, they had completely lost their minds. He looked at Li Yuanqing as if he was looking at good flesh and blood. His eyes were filled with greed. When their desire increased, the red in their eyes would become very strong. The red had already reached its peak. Li Yuanqing, who was standing in front of them, was quite strong. He was the highest cultivation level they had seen in such a long time. If they ate this kid, it would definitely increase their strength greatly and make them extremely satisfied. These skeleton soldiers kept emerging from the smoke in all directions. There were more than 10 of them in the beginning. More than 10 formation arrangement realm skeleton experts unleashed the sharp claws in their hands at almost the same time and attacked Li Yuanqing. They howled and charged forward, their bodies constantly emitting a strange energy that connected them together. The power of this connection was very strange. It seemed to be somewhat similar to the light screen emitted by the forest just now. If one looked carefully, they would be able to see that these skeleton soldiers' feet were connected to the ground by this black thread. The trees had already retreated to the side at some point, creating a circular area with a diameter of hundreds of feet in the middle. Li Yuanqing's sword slashed at the skeleton. It was not as simple as cutting vegetables. It felt like he had slashed at a slippery fish. The saber was actually deflected just like that. After discovering this, Li Yuanqing was also very surprised. The armor of these skeletons should not be so strong. But why did their armor seem to have been strengthened many times? It was much different than before. Just now, it was not this strong at all. Now, it was suddenly so powerful. What happened? What changes had they undergone during this period of time? Li Yuanqing emitted a dense aura and repelled these skeletons. He replaced it with a golden rod before stabbing in a direction. Just like before, these skeletons seemed to have a very strange barrier on them that isolated the power of the outside world. It could resolve 30 to 40% of the power. This could be said to be very powerful. If it was just the armor on their bodies, they would definitely not be able to achieve this level of strength. After Li Yuanqing observed carefully, he realized that something was wrong. These skeleton soldiers were connected to the trees. They were like compatriots. The power between the two sides kept flowing and communicating. It was precisely because of this that these skeleton soldiers could resolve Li Yuanqing's power so thoroughly. This was because every time Li Yuanqing hit one of them, these trees and other soldiers helped share the pressure. That was why this power was diverted. Such a powerful method was really shocking. It turned out that these trees actually had methods to use array formations. They themselves could form a complete array formation that was formed by their roots. If he did not break this array formation, even with his strength, he would probably be drowned by this endless skeleton army.